Well, good afternoon, everyone. I am pleased to welcome you to today's webinar, Where to Travel in 2027 with Worldwide Quest. My name is Justin Peter, and I will be your host today. Today's presentation should last about 1 hour, and I'll be speaking for about 40 minutes or so on a number of tours, 7 tours, that we'll be presenting to you and the alumni associations of various Canadian universities. And then we'll be following that with a question period, about 10 to 15 minutes, where you can ask your questions. If you can hear me, but you can't see me, well, let's just put it this way. If you have any technical issues where you can hear me, but you can't see me, or there's something that's frozen, what you can do is leave this broadcast and then return using the link that was provided to you. Alternately, another troubleshooting trick for you, if you can see me, but you cannot see a slide, you should actually be seeing 2 things. You should be seeing my face as well as a slide showing the title of the presentation. If you cannot see the slide, but you can see me, at the bottom of the screen showing my head, there's a gray frame, and at the bottom there should be 3 little dots. Click on those dots, and that should pop down another screen so that you can view the slide presentation that I'll be giving to you today. As well, note that there is a chat in your GoToWebinar console. GoToWebinar being the software we're using today. In the console, there's a couple of different places you want to be just familiar with. One is a chat function. So you'll see in your little vertical GoToWebinar console, there's a few gray bars with words in them with a little arrow. There's a chat function there where we may be popping in a message or 2 to you. There's also a questions console. There's an arrow with questions, and you can pop that down. And as questions occur to you during this presentation, if you want to just pop them in there, I'll be looking at the questions and curating them at the end of the presentation and answering all of them at that point. However, just so you don't forget, if you have a question in mind, just pop it into that questions tab, and I will be attending to those later. So just please be aware of those things. And later in the presentation, we'll be putting in a link to where you can get all of these, you can view all the tours that we're going to be speaking about today. So that is a little bit of housekeeping for you. As I said, my name is Justin Peter. I'm one of the owners of Worldwide Quest, and Worldwide Quest is a small travel company based in Toronto, and we've been operating tours since 1970. And our specialty has been in small group educational and experiential travel around the world on all 7 continents. And we have a branch that is called Alumni Expeditions. And since about, for about the last 16 years, we've been working with a variety of different Canadian universities across the country, presenting tours that are geared towards the alumni and friends, the greater alumni community. So these are tours that, once again, in keeping with our style, our small group, and they have a high educational value. I'll be talking a little bit more about that and what that means over the course of the presentation. So if you heard about if you're attending today's presentation, I think it's quite likely you heard about us through one of these institutions. So we work with all these schools and some other Canadian schools to present alumni travel. And so what does that mean? Well, we go around the world. Most of our groups are land tours. They may be ranging from 10 to 18 people, generally at the very most. On occasion, we'll be offering expedition cruises, which are larger in size. And so we go to different places that you want to go to, as well as places that we think you should think about and consider. And we always have I would say a very great and fun time, in addition to a very educational time. We like to learn, and we like to showcase really what's best and most interesting about the places we go to. We like to showcase local knowledge, special insights, and give you special access to experiences and interactions that you might not get in those places otherwise. And that's really what we like to do. Our tours are really about lifelong learning. So since 2010, we've been connecting with Canadian travelers from across all the different universities. I should mention the tours I'm going to be talking about today are not restricted to alumni of these schools. They're really for alumni and friends. If you like learning, we welcome you onto one of our tours. I would say what also makes our tours different is that our alumni tours are exclusively for the Canadian community. So when you join one of our tours, you'll know that you'll be traveling with other Canadians for the most part. And it makes for a really great time, a great, interesting and fun time. So today I'm going to be talking about a couple of things. First, I'm going to do a very quick visit to 2026. Of course, we're already 2 months in. It's hard to believe. We offer trips every year to the universities, and I'll give all of you an update on what we've been doing and what are some maybe last-minute travel opportunities for you before I delve into really what's new for 2027. And if you've caught one of these previous presentations, you might have gotten more information on some of these tours. This is a smattering of different tours we're offering to the different Canadian alumni associations, both in Canada and abroad. We have some tours that are already sold out because they're so popular. We have a number of tours with limited availability and a couple of tours that have more space on them. A lot of these tours are later in the year, in this year. There's one tour in June, but most of them are in August into the fall. So if you're looking for an opportunity for this year, with the link that I'll provide to you later, you'll be able to visit these tours in addition to the tours I'm going to be talking about for 2027. So what shall we look at for 2027? Well, we're really excited to present 7 different tours that you can consider joining. And they're tours that are really around the world, as I mentioned. We have tours that are both in Canada and abroad. And even if they're not that far away, they may feel they may feel far away. And on that note, the first tour I want to speak to you about today is remote Newfoundland and Labrador. This is a tour we've offered a couple of times to the Canadian University community. It's always sold out, and it's a great way, we think, to discover Newfoundland and Labrador, but really the more remote places. They're places you could possibly go to on your own, but because of the size and the great distances in this region, we think we offer you a high value experience of the area. You don't have to really worry about anything from the time you start the tour till the time it ends. We provide you with the accommodations, most of your meals here, and the sightseeing, the guiding, and the special insights. And this is a tour really, when I say remote Newfoundland, I mean really the great northern peninsula of Newfoundland and the southernmost part of Labrador. And of course, I think for most Canadians, this is part of our imagination. We think of this region as being very vast with huge spaces. The sea is never too far away, and so we have grand spaces like in Grossmore National Park. It's also a historic place. I mean, we have history reaching back, of course, prior to the formation of Newfoundland or even the colony of Newfoundland. Of course, we had the Vikings that settled for a time here in the Great Northern Peninsula. So it's a chance to be in this vast area, a remote part of Canada, to be in, to have a chance to learn about history, but also be in living communities. And that's really an important part of this trip as well, is being in places that are vibrant, that are living, that have a living culture, being with people, meeting with people, and enjoying all of these multiple elements at once. And that's what we think makes this very interesting. Our trip is timed for the middle of June. I'll share the dates later, so from June 12th to the 23rd of 2027. But this is a great time because, first of all, the days are very long, and the weather is relatively pleasant. It's also a great time. It's really the beginning of the iceberg migration time. So we have a chance to see icebergs that are now moving down from Davis Strait, icebergs that come from Greenland originally, and of course with the ice breaking up in the north, they start flowing down again at this time. So it's time for a great experience. In this tour, we're including a number of different signature locations. I mentioned Grossmore National Park. we can't go to this region without visiting this great place. So you'll have a chance to be in a place that you've probably wanted to visit. If this area interests you, it's a place where we will have a chance to do some hiking, not trekking per se, but some moderate walking and to enjoy the scenery and photography. Wildflowers will be beginning. A number of different orchids are blooming at this time as well. Of course, Newfoundland is a great wildlife destination as well. Moose were introduced to the island of Newfoundland and did very, very well in Newfoundland. So there's a chance for you to observe moose here, a number of different other wildlife species, for possibly caribou, black bears, and whales. There is a great marine life. We'll be, of course, crossing from the island of Newfoundland to Labrador and back, and this can be a great place to see whales as well as seabirds in that region. As I mentioned, a big part of our tours in general is about meeting locals and interacting directly with local people who live here. So we'll have a chance to be meeting locals all along the way on this tour and having really fun interactions with them. We always like to stay in nice places on our tours, places that are comfortable and that have a special character to the extent that it's possible to arrange for it. And I would say this tour is no different as well. We're staying at a few different places, but a couple of places really are special, we think, particularly special. One of them is called Battle Harbor Properties, and the other is Grossmorn Inn. Grossmorn Inn being in Newfoundland. Battle Harbor is actually a community in southern Labrador where we go. We take a little boat, we drive up the coast of Labrador, and we take a little boat to get there. And it's a special place because essentially this is a former community, a former living community, and a number of the buildings have been converted to accommodations for outside guests. So you're actually going to have a chance to stay in this wonderful place, to stay in a place that was once a community, and your room could look like this in one of those buildings. So you may be staying in one of, we won't be necessarily staying in a single building. We'll have rooms in different buildings, but they're all forming really one lodge. And so we think a special character. You can see that nice Newfoundland or Labrador in this case quilt. So there's a lot of character in the places we like to have you stay in. Now, for our alumni expeditions in general, we like to feature a study leader, and that's someone who has special insights, who may have done research in that destination, who may be from there or may have lived there in the past. In the past, we have always drawn on someone from Newfoundland and Labrador to join our tour. At this point, we have yet to identify who that person will be for this 2027 tour, but be assured it will be someone who will provide a lot of local flavor and color commentary to our travel. So as we will have site guides in the different places we visit, but our study leader will be with you through the whole trip and providing that color commentary and filling in the gaps, maybe narrating as we're driving along. Some of the drives can be scenic, but long. So you'll be assured a great conversation all the way through this tour. And here's some quick facts on this trip. So as I mentioned, it's going to be in the middle of June, so June 12th to 23, 2027. The group size is 14 to 18, so a nice small group size appropriate to the area. And in terms of activity level, it'll be moderate. There won't be any arduous trekking on this trip, although there will be some walking for sure. So it's a nice trip, certainly for those who like to be active and to be out there enjoying the fresh air and keeping somewhat fit, at least, while you're enjoying all these different features of this trip. So geology, hiking, music, history, Viking history specifically, and Newfoundland culture in those outport communities, starting and ending in Deer Lake, Newfoundland, which is very convenient to get to by plane. You can get there from a number of different places. So if you want a nice Canadian trip that's really essentially all-inclusive and that provides all of these different elements plus special insights, I'll encourage you to consider remote Newfoundland and Labrador. On the Canada theme and also on the remote theme, we're going to move all the way to the West Coast right now, and I'm going to speak about Haida Gwaii. Haida Gwaii, right under this pin here, is an archipelago formerly known as the Queen Charlotte Islands for a time. Haida Gwaii, of course, have been long inhabited by the Haida people, and they're really almost as far west as we could get in Canada. It has a main island, a couple of main islands, and a number of different small islands here. And it's a really special place because, of course, it is far out there. It's hard in a way to explore. It is possible to explore a little bit on land, but a lot of the places of interest are really remote, even within the archipelago itself. So, of course, being on one of Canada's coasts, you can expect a lot of wonderful scenery. This is a trip that's timed for the end of May into the beginning of June. I'll show you the actual dates later, but it's a really good time to be in this area. Also, the days are long at this point, and it's a chance to be in a place that has a great and very deep cultural history. I think we're all familiar with these totem poles or the images of these poles. Those images you've seen, is quite likely they've come from Haida Gwaii. So the Haida have been inhabiting the area for thousands of years, but they also still live in this area. So this is a place to soak in the history, but also meet and learn from the people who still live there. So we have a great cultural element to this trip, and it is simply a beautiful place with receiving as much rainfall it does, especially over the winter time. The habitat is luxuriant, and being a relatively pristine part of Canada as well, it has wonderful wildlife too. So bald eagles, it has bears, black bears, as we do, of course, throughout Canada. Interestingly enough, the black bears on Haida Gwaii are a distinct subspecies. The island itself has been, the archipelago has been isolated for so long from mainland Canada that these bears have evolved differently. They've evolved, let's say, away from the main black bear species present on mainland Canada and form a distinctive larger variety. Being always close to the sea, you have wonderful seabird life all over the place. This is a puffin. This is a tufted puffin. Looks a little bit different from the puffins we think about in Newfoundland or Iceland, but we have wonderful seabirds, wonderful marine life as well, with sea lions like stellar sea lions, and orcas, of course, and other whales inhabit the area. So it's a great place for forests, for coasts, for tidal pools, a larger wildlife and smaller wildlife. And in order to get around this archipelago, we are chartering this wonderful newer vessel, the motor vessel, or the sail vessel rather, Island Solitude, which is a 6-cabin vessel. It launched in 2019, so relatively new and really quite nice. It's really an appropriate way to get to remote places, and I think we can think of no better way to enjoy the area in a very intimate way, because this trip is limited to 12 travelers. So it's a really great way to get around. The vessel itself is a wonderful viewing platform because we're traveling, we have open view all around us. But because of its small size, we can get relatively close to landing areas, and we will get to the landing areas by Zodiac. On occasion, we'll do simply Zodiac rides, but the Zodiacs that we have on board will let us get in and actually make landings and get to places, for example, ancient villages with totem poles, or special walks into wonderful coastal rainforest here. Just to show you a little bit more about the vessel inside, so quite nice, quite spacious. We have these cabins. I'm showing you an image there of the cabin at lower right, and a bathroom on lower left. All of the cabins have their private ensuite bathroom, so you're assured great privacy and comfort here, with simply wonderful culinary experience on board as well, because you do have your own onboard chef cooking for just you and the small group you're traveling with. So it's a wonderful, very comfortable way to explore a part of Canada. We think everyone should have a chance to visit and make the effort to visit. And our study leader is yet to be announced, but you'll be assured of someone who has a lot of experience on the west coast of Canada. And of course, we will be having, as I mentioned in the case of Newfoundland and Labrador, site guides. So in this case of Haida Gwaii, it's actually Haida guides who will be meeting us in the different landing places, providing interpretation and hosting us, because in fact this is their land. And so it'll be a great experience overall. This is a 10-day trip, which includes one pre-cruise night on Haida Gwaii before we embark on our vessel and cruise around the archipelago. As I mentioned, the group size is limited to 12 people, and the activity level is moderate. We can expect some walking. You will be actually part of the fitness really is disembarking and embarking from the vessel with assistance, and this provides all of these different elements. It's a remote area of Canada. You have great wildlife. You have a living culture and historic culture, and this is an exclusive charter for our Canadian alumni university community travelers. So it's really just us enjoying this from 10 to 12 people enjoying this wonderful experience. So we'll encourage you to consider Haida Gwaii for another side of Canada, and a remote one at that. Now, sticking to North America, but diving deep to the south, I want to talk about another place that I love, that I've come to love especially, and that is Mexico City. Of course, Mexico has been in the news lately, perhaps not for the best reasons, but Mexico City is a wonderful and a wonderful place to visit. And this trip we're calling Mexico City Arts and Culture, because it's really about experiencing Mexico City on very many levels, we think. Mexico City, of course, is a very large city. It's known as one of the larger cities in the world. And you might imagine, how could a tour simply visit Mexico City and its environs? Well, this trip is a short trip. I'll show you the number of days later. It's really an 8-day trip. But there is plenty to see and to do in 8 days. I can assure you of that from my own experiences. And of course, Mexico City is a very, it's really a multi-layered city. It's so hard to describe what it is. I had my own impressions of it before visiting there the first time. And it's a wonderful, of course, it's a historic city, but what we see, this is really the center of the city, of the historic core, is actually a new city. It's a city built in the 16th century atop an older Mexica city, Mexica, which is now popularly called the Aztecs, but it's the Mexica people who lived here. And so figuratively, we think of layers. It is really a city of layers. And we have really a modern, vibrant city with great historic Spanish colonial roots, which are rooted on top of layers of in past indigenous cultures, in plural, because the Aztec Empire was not the first in the region as well. And we have so many interesting historic sites in and around the city. And it's a vibrant, living city. As I said, of course, there are a lot of people in the city, but you have many different little vignettes of solitude that you can find in beauty that are really all throughout. And there's a great effort in the city of Mexico. Of course, there's a lot of past art, but there's a lot of modern living art. Overpasses are painted, have wonderful murals around them, and public art is really an important thing in Mexico City. So there's been a concerted effort to make monuments that represent, that pay homage to some part of Mexican history in the recent and distant past. And so you have a lot of efforts been paid to these public spaces, squares, and parks. This is a beautiful park here. You can see the purple jacaranda trees, which will actually be blooming in the time of our trip, which is in the spring of 2027. Beautiful public spaces, incredible museums and cultural sites. There are really so many I can barely begin to describe how wonderful they are. And we'll be visiting public spaces, we'll be visiting museums and galleries with local hosts who can provide those special insights. So there will be a lot, I would say, that you will learn and experience that you could not have expected, that just simply blows your mind, really. There are a lot of images that you will become acquainted or sort of reacquainted with. Everyone's familiar with the image of Frida Kahlo, for example. We'll have a chance to be acquainted with things that we know to an extent. We'll, in fact, have a chance to visit her own workshop in the neighboring neighborhood of Coyoacan. And so this is a trip to really soak in many different layers and really to really let yourself almost be impressed with the richness of Mexico's culture. Part of the culture, of course, in Mexico, Mexico is very well known for its culinary experience. I cannot overstate it. I think if you like interesting food, tasty food that combines a whole multitude of ingredients, really a lot of pre-Hispanic recipes have been somewhat modified, perhaps with European spices and ingredients. It is a fantastic fusion, really. And that's really what Mexico City is. Mexico City, in its many layers, represents a fusion. Food, you will not be wanting for tasty food, let me tell you that. We'll have a chance to experience wonderful restaurants as well as street food, which abounds. You'll also have a number of free evenings when you can go and try the local fare on your own and see what you like and what you find interesting. As I mentioned, this is a shorter trip. We will be staying in one accommodation, so there will not be no packing and unpacking. You can stay one wonderful place in a great neighborhood, which allows you in some of your free time, which is built in, to explore on your own the area around. Mexico City has so much green space in those neighborhoods. There's so many trees. I think you will be impressed. So it's a nice place just to immerse and almost live as a local as well in our free time, which is built into this trip. Our study leader for this tour is to be announced, but just watch for news on that. And as I mentioned, this tour is a short tour. It's 8 days, 7 nights, so it's a really great getaway. If perhaps you can't get, if you're not retired, perhaps this is a great short trip for you to enjoy. And it's a small group, 14 to 16, and it is really features all of these different elements: architecture, public art, historical sites, museums, gastronomy, and it's a single hotel stay. So it's a great way to enjoy a large city, because of course we're providing the transportation to you, so you can enjoy it and be relaxed about it as well, and of course enjoy the special insights from our study leader and our local guides. So consider Mexico City Arts and Culture in April of 2027. So on the cultural theme, but now moving to the far side of the globe, I'm going to talk about another place which is near and dear to me, which is India. And this is a wonderful trip, which we call North India's iconic cities and the Holi festival. Holi, of course, today, by the way, is Holi, according to the lunar calendar. And this trip will be taking place in about a year at this very time. I will say that India is one of my personal favorite travel destinations. Actually, I think it is really my favorite travel destination. A very large country. We know it's well populated, a very deep and long cultural history, and also great natural history as well. But it is a very large country. And so this trip is really a chance to enjoy a core area of North India, because India really could be 6 or more different tours. This is really a core trip to the north of India. I would say it's a great trip for a first-time visitor to India, where you want to enjoy some of the highlights. You've probably heard of Jaipur, of course, Delhi being the capital, and Agra, which is the home of the Taj Mahal. This trip expands on those places. So it's really core of what we call the Golden Triangle, but it's a little bit including places farther afield that we think are key. I'll show you images of those other places in a few moments. But starting in Delhi, Delhi is a large city with really fascinating history, pre-British history, as well as a British colonial history, and a living and very present culture right now. So our tour starts in Delhi, but includes as well, in addition to that, of course, some of the core places you've heard about. Jaipur to the west in Rajasthan, just amazing, beautiful architecture and places you just simply gawk in awe of, because they are incredible expressions of beauty. I cannot say it in any other way. Of course, we include places like the Taj Mahal, also a core experience. I will say that I have visited the Taj Mahal 5 times, and I would visit it again, because it really provides an incredible sense of serenity once you get on top of that marble platform that you see before us here, below with the Great Dome in the central building here. It's an amazing place to be. Wonderful history, but also simply beyond words, really, once you're there. So while I would call this really an essential trip of northern India, visiting that core area we call the Golden Triangle, really what makes this trip special is that we are going a little bit farther afield. So to the east, we're going to be visiting this wonderful city here called Varanasi, which is it's considered to be the most sacred city by Hindus. And it's, traveling to India is always visually interesting. That's one of the reasons I love going to India, because there's always something going on there that's different, very different from what we know here in North America. And so it's a very stimulating place. There are all sorts of different ceremonies taking place here on the Ghats, which is sort of the steps leading down to the sacred river you see here, which is the Ganges. So this is what I would consider a big treat. And so this is to the east. And then, of course, we're going to be also going farther west than you would typically go in North India, to a place called Jodhpur. I'll show you an image of what that city looks like. Very beautiful. But really, at this time of year, as I mentioned earlier, we're going during the festival of colors called Holi. And probably you've seen images, very, very flowery images, very colorful images that look like this. You'll see colors, and people are throwing colored powder at each other, coloring their faces and their clothes, sometimes getting wet with water, and it's really colorful, colorful all round. Now, you don't have to get involved to this extent. You can allow color to be applied to your face, or do it yourself if you wish as well. But it's a great time to be here in India, because this is really considered the advent of spring at this full moon. And all of India gets very excited at this time. We'll be in Jodhpur, as I said, which is a smaller, very historic and beautiful city, famously known as the Blue City, because as you can see here from this image, many of the buildings are painted blue. But this is a smaller, quieter city, so this will be a very nice place to experience Holi. And just all around, for the warmth of the daytime, temperatures, and just because of all the festivities, it is a great time to be in this part of northern India. So of course you're really getting the culture and the history, and just wonderful visuals all around. We have not yet selected the study leader for this trip, but you can be assured it'll be someone who's giving you special insights into culture in North India. And of course, this trip is happening in March, coinciding with the Holi time. This trip will start and end in Delhi. And it has these various highlights I've talked about: the Holi festival itself, iconic cities like Delhi, Agra, home of the Taj, Varanasi, and Jodhpur. Of course, the Taj Mahal itself, which I talked about at length. And one of the parts of India that inevitably we have a chance to experience is the gastronomy. There's wonderful food all over the place. So it's a great chance to be familiar, perhaps to refamiliarize yourself, because Indian food is so well known in Canada now. But to have the food in the place where it was, where these dishes were invented. And of course, there's great shopping opportunities all around for those of you who like to delve a little bit into arts and crafts and textiles. There's a lot of wonderful high value purchases you can make. You don't even have to be a shopper. It's very hard to not leave India with something very special and beautiful. So now we're going to move on. We're going to go west, actually, to Europe. And the next trip I'm talking about is our walking tour, walking Prague to Krakow. It's a trip that includes the Czech Republic, Slovakia, and Poland. And of course, earlier I mentioned the Portuguese Coastal Camino walks. We had 2 tours happening this year in 2026 that are sold out. A lot of our travelers have told us that keeping fit during a tour is important, because you may be quite fit, quite active at home, but often on trips we tend to perhaps eat more, and we tend to walk a lot less because we're often shuttled by bus from one place to another. Usually that is the case. But on this trip, this is really a great opportunity to discover wonderful places, signature places, and many places off the beaten path, and be active as well. Hence, this walking trip was conceived. And this trip starts in the west in Prague, the green dot you can see on the map here, and ends in Krakow, which is the former capital of Poland. And it is visiting many different quaint and beautiful and historic and scenic places in between. So, I mean, this area has thousands of years of history. This area also being on the border of currently, Czech Republic, Poland, Slovakia. It's also been on the border of different European empires for centuries. So it's been a tension zone, as you might say, and because of that, there's been a lot of construction, fortified villages and castles, such as this one here, many of which are now derelict, but that dot the landscape throughout. And so this is the type of scenery we can enjoy as we're walking on this trip. So we'll have lower hills. We'll also, as we move east from Czech Republic into Slovakia, we get into the Tatras Mountains. So these are really bigger actual mountains. And we'll see beautiful scenery, different landforms that we don't easily find here at home necessarily. And of course, we begin in Prague. Now, Prague is a city probably many of you have already visited. We don't have a full day's tour here, but you can arrive early here in Prague if you want to just spend some more time, whether or not you've been here before. It's a great place to simply be and to enjoy. And of course, the trip ending in Krakow, the former capital of Poland, as I mentioned. It's also an area you can spend some extra time after the end of the trip. But in between, we're experiencing daily walks from about 3 to 15 kilometers in length. And I did not mention actually, this is a supported walk. And what that means is as we're walking basically between Prague and Krakow, our major luggage, our luggage is being conveyed by vehicle but from one spot to another. So we're not carrying all of our things with us. We're not trekking all the way. We'll just carry what you need for the day. And we'll have a variety of walks through a variety of terrain. Now, of course, walking, being active, you will work up probably a bit of an appetite. And luckily, the cuisine in this region, one of my favorites, is always hearty, filling, and very tasty. So you'll enjoy things such as schnitzel on the top left, pierogies on the bottom, on the right side, a variety of stews. Great. This is really wonderful, wonderful cuisine. So you can always look forward to that. And in terms of our tour leader, we have Jaroslava Bekonova, who is a Czech language and literature teacher. And she is from the Prague area. She knows this whole area, this whole route quite well. And throughout her trip, she'll be enriching our days with Czech lore and literature, getting us more intimately familiar with the terrain. In addition to Jaroslava, we will have Czech walking guides who will be there leading the way in terms of the actual technical side of the walk and logistics. And so you're going to have a really good, great sense of this area from your different hosts on this trip. And this trip will be in September of 2027. This is 12 days in length. As I mentioned, it is an active trip with 3 to 15 kilometer walks on average every day, starting in Prague and ending in Krakow. And there are many great features here. We'll be visiting a number of UNESCO sites. There's medieval castles, serene villages, vast landscapes, regional cuisine, and it, once again, is a fully supported walk. So it's a great way to experience Europe. Even if you've been to this area or part of this area, you're going to be experiencing areas you have not been to for sure. And so we encourage you to consider this for an active, wonderful cultural immersion experience in Europe. Now, speaking of culture and immersion, the next destination is in Europe as well. If I showed it to you on a large map, sort of a map of the world, and showed you this pin, where this pin here on the right side of the screen is pointing, it would be hard to see what exactly it's pointing at. It looks like it's in the middle of the ocean, and it is very small. It's the Faroe Islands, as you can see here, a very small archipelago of 18 islands found partway between Scotland and Iceland. And we're very excited about this trip because this is, well, it combines many of the features we think our travelers like. You know, we'll get into more of them later, but this is basically where the Faroes are here. And Faroes, you can think of it kind of sort of like a bit of a chip off of either Iceland or Scotland, or really both of them. You can expect scenery, wonderful scenery, rugged landscapes with waterfalls and dramatic coastlines, basically towering out of the ocean here. It's an area well known for those waterfalls, and there's wonderful walks that can be done in this area as well. So there's dramatic scenery all around. And the islands also being found in the productive North Atlantic are rich in marine life. So it's very productive waters here, both for fishing, for humans, but also for wildlife, such as whales. So we have cetaceans, we have millions of seabirds, also including puffins and fulmars and gannets that are breeding in this area too. And of course, they had a toehold in the region before people came here. When the Vikings came here in around the year 895, they were the first humans that we know of that visited here. And of course, the Vikings stayed and they settled here, bringing their culture and their language here. And so, in addition to being a really wild and remote area, this is a remote inhabited area that we visited. This is the capital of Vagar, which is really a small town, and it is the larger of the settlements here. But throughout the archipelago, we have a number of beautiful, colorful villages here, settled by the descendants of the Vikings here. And in terms of the language and culture, their language is Faroese. The islands are administered by Denmark, but the language is not mutually intelligible with the mainland European Scandinavian languages, and it's only somewhat mutually intelligible with Icelandic to the west. So it's its own distinctive language, although related to the Scandinavian languages, but it is a very distinctive culture. And part of this trip, really, that's special, is the opportunity to visit the villages and also to visit with the locals in their homes. So, for example, enjoying a meal with Faroese in their own homes is an opportunity we provide on this tour. So it's really a wonderful all-round experience. The landscapes are dramatic. We have an opportunity to visit marine caves here. In fact, even to enjoy a little bit of an operatic performance inside one of the sea caves along the coastlines. Some of the islands are connected to each other by causeways, and others are only accessible by ferry. So we'll have a chance to visit different islands both ways. The Faroese, of course, sheep are a staple, rather wool is a staple product of the Faroe Islands. So we'll have a chance to see the sheep in action. There will be a location where we'll visit where they're looking at, researchers are looking at the pre-settlement effect of let's say, the pre-settlement conditions. What did the landscape look like before sheep were grazing? Of course, the sheep help produce these wonderful Faroe sweaters that you'll have a chance to see, perhaps to purchase as well. But we're looking at excluding sheep from certain areas to see what the vegetation might have been like before the Vikings came and settled down with their sheep. So there's many interesting people we're going to meet, many interesting places we'll be. This is a short tour. It is a 7-day tour, which is just the perfect length of time for this area. But what's fun, because of the small size of the archipelago, is we'll stay in one single accommodations, which is this hotel here. So it makes it very easy and very relaxed. Look, there's even a sheep there on the top right greeting us. We have a relaxed pace to this trip, so there's no packing and unpacking, repacking every day or every second day. We can just enjoy this single lodge stay here. And we'll have some spare times as well in the evenings where you can go and do a little walkabout on your own. The days will be super long. This trip is in June and very high latitude, so we can enjoy the landscape together in a group on our excursions, as well as some free time. And we're particularly excited for this trip because of our study leader here, Natalie Van Dusen, was just recently signed on to lead this trip as our Canadian study leader. Natalie is based at the University of Alberta, and in fact, she's a scholar of, and I'll tell you, she's a scholar of Scandinavian language, literature, and culture from the Middle Ages through the present. And she's very particularly interested in Old Norse and early modern Icelandic literature. So Natalie will be providing context, both informal and formal, on this region. In addition to Natalie, of course, you will be meeting with the locals themselves. You're going to have a very rich context to your visit, and it's going to be a really great immersion experience, learning experience as well for you. So what does this trip provide? It's 7 days in length, as I mentioned. Our group size is 14 to 16. I'll say it's an easy to moderate trip in terms of level of difficulty. And we start and end in Vaga, which is the capital. So what does it offer? Well, it offers the remote factor, authentic living culture, the chance to dine with the locals, amazing scenery and wildlife opportunities as well. And it's a single lodge stay. So you unpack and repack just once on this trip. So we'll ask you to consider the Faroe Islands for your trip in 2027. And next, speaking of remote, I wanted to discuss really an epic trip, a trip of epic proportions, and that is our expedition cruise that we call Epic Antarctica with the Falklands and South Georgia. And you can see the pin on my map here is pointing really at the tip of the Antarctic Peninsula, but this trip covers a wide area, which I'll show you a little bit more of in a few moments here. Of course, Antarctica is well known. If you've heard that as a remote place with large mountains, mountains, ice, snow, that is correct. You have unparalleled landscapes here, we think, in Antarctica, and they're dramatic, and they really make you feel quite small, actually. So it really resets, to visit this place is to really reset your sense of scale. We have wonderful mountains, we have wonderful ice, both sea ice and ice shelves that are coming off of the continent of Antarctica, and a myriad of form. And it's really endless in its complexities visually. Antarctica is also known as a wildlife destination. Of course, there are penguins in Antarctica, so we have penguins, all sorts of marine life, very little land life, larger life, conspicuous wildlife that lives on the continent because it is so inhospitable, but a lot of marine life, marine birds and marine mammals. And it, as I said, gives you a different sense of scale when you get there because everything is so large. Now, this is an expedition we have, this is some of our past travelers, I think from 2022. This is a trip we have offered twice before in recent times to the Canadian University alumni community. And it is a big trip. It is a long trip. It's a 21-day trip. And it is long because it really covers a wide geographic area. So looking at this map here, we're starting at the green spot, which is Punta Arenas in the southern tip of Chile. And we're doing a clockwise circle, what we call a circle trip of Antarctica, of the Southern Ocean, really. And we're ending back in Argentina. But what's happening here is we're visiting 3 distinctive regions of the Antarctic region writ large here. We're visiting the Falkland Islands, South Georgia, and then we're going to Antarctica proper in the south before we come back. And this is really an opportunity to experience contrast in diversity in this region. First, of course, we'll be going to the Falklands. And when you see an image like this in the Falkland Islands, of course, they're well known because of the Falkland Islands War. But we see a place where it looks like, well, the water is so beautiful and turquoise and with beautiful sandy beaches. It looks like a place you would want to just run into the water because it looks like it should be warm, but it's not. It is really quite a cool area, but it's a warmer region, of course, of this region at large. And it is an interesting region. There are, in fact, of course, people who live here, a small number, about 3,500 people who live here permanently. It's also great for scenery, but also great for wildlife. For example, albatross, a bird with a very long wingspan that's known to follow ships, often we associate it with the Southern Ocean or Antarctica. In fact, there are no albatross in Antarctica proper who live there, who breed there. but the Falklands are a major center of albatross breeding. So this bird, this one here is the black-browed albatross. Falklands is host to important colonies of black-browed albatross. We'll have a chance to see them. We will actually see penguins, up to 5 species on the sandy beaches, which is really a mind, it almost requires a mind shift when you see penguins walking a nice sandy beach like that. And we will have a chance to meet the local people as well, in all likelihood, if the weather permits it. Now, the next part of this trip, of course, we leave the Falklands, we go east to South Georgia, and probably, maybe you've not heard the name South Georgia, but you've probably seen images of it. For example, this type of image is a major, a very large colony of king penguins, the second largest penguin in the world. And you might have seen images of these colonies and thought this is Antarctica, perhaps on planet Earth with David Attenborough. But South Georgia, this is quite far from Antarctica. And in fact, in terms of penguin numbers and density, this probably has a much higher population of penguins than the same area we would visit in Antarctica. So it has abundant penguin numbers, and it's just set in a very productive marine environment. So there's lots of penguins, lots of marine mammals in this area. And these penguin colonies are spectacular. Literally the largest colony of king penguins is found on South Georgia, and it is a sight to behold. It is simply spectacular. South Georgia is described sometimes as a slice of Switzerland dropped into the Southern Ocean. And that's because this island is very high also and mountainous. It has permanent ice, snow and ice on it, on its higher peaks. Some of the higher peaks you can't even see because they're so high. It's very difficult to fathom even when you're there how high and how grand this island is. So it's a place of dramatic landscapes and also of important history. Some of you have probably heard of this gentleman here, Sir Ernest Shackleton, who attempted to get onto the Antarctic continent in 1915. Unfortunately, the ship got set in ice and stuck, and eventually the sea ice crushed the ship hull and it sank. All of his men were left stranded, and they hiked up to a place called Elephant Island on the tip of that Antarctic peninsula. And Ernest Shackleton and some of his men sailed to South Georgia. Somehow, miraculously, in a very small vessel, they got help from Norwegian whalers who came back to rescue his men from Antarctica. So South Georgia is closely associated with the Ernest Shackleton story, and there is an opportunity to walk part of Ernest Shackleton's way, where he crossed from the south to the north side of South Georgia Island to get help. So it's really a very beautiful, interesting, and haunting place. Now, part of our experience, in addition to these regions we're visiting, is the educational experience. So we have some sea crossing days between South America and Falklands, between Falklands and South Georgia, between South Georgia and Antarctica, and from Antarctica back. And on these days, although these days are a couple of days of crossing, we take full advantage of our time with our onboard experts. On this expedition, we have selected a number of study leaders, or faculty or distinguished alumni from our partnering Canadian universities who do research in the Antarctic region, who have worked in or have done research there, or who have even lived on Antarctica. And so we have a wonderful, in-depth series of lectures that are crafted to tell the story of the Southern Ocean region, wherein really one lecture builds on the previous lecture. And so we have a chance to just speak with these experts and learn from them formally and informally. Sometimes we'll even do some science experiments and sampling on board our vessel. And I should say our vessel is really a wonderful one. This is the brand new Magellan Discoverer, which we've used the sister ship in the last 2 expeditions, but this one will be brand new. It's really a new and improved vessel with wonderful interior spaces that really bring the outside in. So no matter where you are in the lounge, you could be dining. If there's a call for a rare penguin or a whale outside, the port side or the starboard side, you could go over to the window and not miss it. So this new vessel incorporates more flow in terms of how we move around the spaces, which is wonderful. We have great places like a library that are a little smaller, quieter for some reading or just quiet conversations. And this is really what I call the finest boutique, the finest and smallest boutique expedition cruising vessels in the Antarctic region. We are hosting a maximum of 88 travelers aboard. This is well below the typical average for these expedition cruises, which are going, from 150 or more travelers aboard. So this ship actually can only take maximum of 96 travelers. So we're below even that number, and yet it has very nice, generous space. So we have nice, spacious cabins. We have 2 different cabin categories available on this vessel, and this vessel is purpose-built for Antarctic exploration. So that means we have these wonderful spaces that feel fresh, and things like, for example, boarding onto our Zodiacs that we use to get on land or do Zodiac cruises is very easy, because you see here at far right, we have this low ramp which comes basically to the top edge of the Zodiac, unless you walk into the Zodiac with assistance. But this is different than older vessels, let's say, that are converted to passenger use, where they have a steeper gangway to get down. So this is built for comfort. There are many other features that make this a really wonderful, comfortable place to be. Speaking of comfort, the menu on this vessel is extraordinary, and we have wonderful meals a la carte and sometimes buffet, accompanied by Chilean wines, as our vessel actually hails from Chile. And so you will always find it a great culinary experience. And the vessel itself, in addition to us kind of living on it, itself is a great viewing platform. So at many times we don't have to leave the vessel to go to land, to go to a penguin colony necessarily, or to do a Zodiac ride. We can just enjoy the scenery from the bow of the ship or somewhere on the ship. So this trip is in October and November of 2027. October, November is the advent of spring in Antarctica, and our trip is timed to really coincide with a number of different special events. First of all, when we're in South Georgia, in general in the region, things like penguins are just returning to the colonies. This creature here, the southern elephant seal on South Georgia, here the males that we're seeing here, the males are sparring vigorously to defend their harems of females on the beaches. So this phenomenon here of these sparring males happens in a very narrow window at this time of year, and we're right in that window. If you go later, they'll still be there, but they'll simply be a lying giant blob, let's say, on the beach. Here we see drama, we get to see them in action, which is really quite special. And so, being springtime, penguins are setting up colonies. When we get to the continent of Antarctica proper, it's fresh. There's still snow in a lot of places. It may be that we are the first people in the southern summer, basically, to land at some of these places. So it is fresh. The penguins have just returned and are building nests. So we get a sense that this is very much, we have it really very much to ourselves. And so there's a lot of ice and snow as well in Antarctica proper, and it is simply beautiful. And this is a great joint experience, because this is an exclusive ship charter for the Canadian University travel community. So you will know that you are traveling with other Canadian travelers here, and we have an enjoyable time. And as I mentioned earlier, we have study leaders drawn from the Canadian University alumni community. So we have these 3 fine scholars who will be aboard with us, experts in oceanography and in ice, for example, who are joining us. We have one study leader yet to announce. So this will be an all-round wonderful educational experience. It's remote. It's giving you a complete Antarctic experience with the Falklands, South Georgia, and Antarctica proper for that diversity. We will feature research and scholarship from our study leaders, and we think it's really a great value in terms of educational travel. It's a long trip, 21 days. It begins in Punta Arenas, Chile, and ends in Ushuaia in Argentina. And as I said, it's limited to 88 passengers. So this is really a small ship expedition cruise experience that you won't quite find anywhere else, really. So we urge you to consider, if you want to really this great bucket list trip, consider joining us for this expedition. Now, I mentioned that we would share the link to the web page on our website, Worldwide Quest, where you can find these and more trips geared to the alumni travel community. These are all trips for alumni and friends. So you don't need to be a graduate of one of the schools that I showed at the beginning. You could be somehow on their list, or you just want to learn and be a part of a great educational travel experience. You are welcome to join any of these tours, and you'll find them here, worldwidequest.com/alumni. I should mention that this presentation is being recorded as well, and you are free to share the recording of this webinar with anyone else who might be interested. If you have any questions at all, you can simply email us at travel@worldwidequest.com. And we hope to welcome you onto one of our 2027 alumni expeditions. Thank you so much.